let's draw our candle. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fold my paper, and this is scratch paper, and you will have scratch paper as well probably, just so I have some guidelines so that my candle can be a little more symmetrical. So I'm gonna fold it in half and half again, and you can do the same thing with your paper. And now when I'm drawing my candle, I can kind of judge, like if it's the same on this side as this side. Okay, so the first thing I wanna do, if this is the middle of my paper right here, I'm gonna go maybe right about here. Everybody's candle's gonna look different. Some are gonna be taller, some are gonna be shorter. It doesn't really matter how you draw your candle, but I'm gonna start right about here, and you are going to make an ellipse shape, kind of like you did for your soup cans. Okay, so we're making the top of our candle like this. And I'm gonna kind of fix it up as I go, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm gonna draw 2 lines down from the edge here. Hopefully I'm drawing dark enough that you can see this. I'll try and draw a little bit darker here. And then the same thing on this side. So now the bottom of your candle is not just a straight line, because we are making a form, we are making a 3D object. It would be this same ellipse shape. But you don't have to draw this whole ellipse shape if you don't want to. You can just draw the curved bottom part. But if you were to draw the whole thing, it would look something like this. But you don't need to draw the whole thing. In fact, I'm gonna erase this back here because we're gonna draw some other lines and it might get a little bit confusing to see that line. Okay, so here's the base of my candle, and now I'm just going to draw a line through the background so that it looks like my candle is sitting on a table. Okay, step 1. Step 2, we are going to draw directional guidelines to help us when we are making the drip. So the first thing I want you to do is I just want you to draw lightly, just straight lines, because when the candle is dripping, it's just gonna go straight down, and this is gonna help us. So you're just making some straight lines down your candle. Okay, and then I also want you to find the middle of your candle, the rim right here. We're calling this the rim, and I want you to put a little dot in there because that's where our wick and our flame is going to be. So I want you to mark that part right there. And then when our candle wax is dripping down the candle, it's also going to drip on the table, but we need to make sure those drips are going the right way so it looks realistic. So what I want you to do is I want you to make directional lines on your table. Start here in the middle and just draw a line straight down like that. And then you are going to start making diagonal lines that kind of angle out around the candle. And you're gonna do the same thing this way. None of this has to be perfect, just do your best. In fact, that's not great, but I'm not gonna worry about it. Okay, now when our candle is lit, the flame would kind of radiate out. So it's gonna be darker here and lighter here. I want you to make some marks for yourself. Around this dot here, I just want you to lightly draw a circle. And then I want you to draw some more circles a couple inches away from each other, like this. This is just gonna be our guidelines, and here I don't have room for a whole circle. I'm just gonna draw parts. This is our guidelines for what the flame is going to look like, okay? So this is step 2. Step 3, I want you to add where it looks like there's a rim to your candle, and we're gonna start drawing drips that go down the sides from the rim. It's gonna go down the sides, down the middle, and it's going to melt onto the table. So the way I draw my rim is I'm just gonna draw a wavy line on the inside that looks something like this. okay? Now for my drips, I don't want to have straight lines all the way down my candle. I want it to be a little bit wavy so it looks a little bit drippy. So I'm going to end up erasing these straight lines. So here's what I mean. So you're going to just start, it's going to be slightly wavy, and this is just a very relaxed, don't get too stressed out about this. Think about what drips look like. Drippy wax, maybe you can imagine drippy paint, anything that's kind of drippy. And I'm just making these lines different sizes. I don't want them all to be the same size because of course a candle's not gonna drip perfectly. And then when I get to the edge here, I'm gonna kind of wave that out. So let me show you, let me erase this straight line here and erase this straight line here, okay? And then what you're gonna do is you're just gonna start making layers of drips. So I'm gonna start at the end of my last drip. Maybe I'll make this one a little bit shorter. And I am going to make my layers. Once again, everybody's candle is going to look differently, which is the way it should be. Don't get too stressed out about this, just make it kind of loose. And then it's gonna meet here, and then I would erase this right here. And you don't have to erase this, but you can, because I still have my guidelines in here, and I'm not gonna worry about erasing all those. Okay, so of course, I'm gonna keep going with my drips. Maybe make some smaller ones here, varying the length, because you don't want them all the same size. And then I'm gonna do one more layer of drips here. I'm not gonna go all the way to the bottom. I'm gonna kind of stop close to the bottom, but I'm not gonna go all the way. Okay, now that my whole candle is dripping, I'm going to add my drips that go onto the table. So I'm gonna use these guidelines to help me. So maybe I'll start right here, and the drips are gonna go out this way, following these guidelines. We want the drips to go in the same directions as these lines. And that way it looks more realistic, like the candle is in fact dripping all over the table. Okay, so now I have my candle drawn. The very next step is I'm going to use my pencil to shade under each drip and inside the rim, and I'm gonna add some shading lines on the outermost portion of my paper here, because if this candle is lit, this part's gonna be bright and it's gonna get darker as we go out. So for the shading, and I'm actually going to erase this part of my rim here, and you should probably do the same thing, and we're gonna kind of wave this part up a little bit so the rim looks like it's dripping. Okay, and so then when we're shading, you don't use the top of your pencil like this. You kind of turn your pencil on the side and you just kind of go back and forth like this. So here we have darker, and then as you lighten the pressure, you get this lighter pencil, and that's a crash course in shading. So once again, under each drip, so actually let's start with the rim. So you're gonna shade the edges of your rim like this. And then you can kind of make it lighter as you're coming out. Okay, and then when I say under the drips, I mean here. So you're gonna kind of go all around. And when I get to the bottom of the drip, I like to make it a little bit bigger. So kind of like thinner on the sides, shading area darker here. And then I'm gonna kind of go back and I'm gonna gradually lighten it and leave some white area. Okay, and then I'm gonna keep going. Here's my other practice one. So I didn't do this part up here. You would also wanna do these strips here. And you keep going so you have these darker areas and these lighter areas. Darker, lighter, and you would do this with all the drips on your candle, and it's gonna be good practice for when we move on to the colored pencil.